That's on me. I mean, we fumbled the rollout on this health care law. There are a whole bunch of things about it that are working really well, which people didn't notice, right? Because they weren't controversial. So making sure kids could stay on their parents' plans till they were up through the age of 25, and making sure that seniors got more discounts on their prescription drugs. There were a whole bunch of stuff that we did well over the first 3 years, but we always knew that these marketplaces, creating a place where people can shop and through competition get a better deal for the health insurance that their families need, we always knew that that was going to be complicated and everybody was going to be paying a lot of attention to it. And we should have done a better job getting that right on day one.
All right, there you go. The President of the United States speaking earlier. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. We're joined right now by our friend Andy McCarthy. Well, he's my friend. He's your friend by extension. And Andy, of course, former federal prosecutor, National Review columnist and editor, and author of the bestseller Spring Fever, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy, and a number of other best-selling books as well. Hello, Andy.
Steve, how are you?
I'm all right, but you know, you really, I love your column the other day on Obama's massive fraud, where you say that if he were the CEO of a company, he'd be prosecuted for the deception that he's perpetrated upon the American public. So before we get to that, let's almost skip to the end here. What did you think of what he had to say today, and does that add to the deception?
Well, anything that extends the Obamacare fraudulent scheme, Steve, almost by definition, adds to the deception because it adds to the scheme. This is a terrible, terrible deception that's been perpetrated on the American people. He lied about it not just a couple of times, but systematically, and it's not a lie that was idle. All they ever wanted to do was get two things, really: get this thing on the books and get him reelected. They wanted to get it on the books because this 2,000-word or 2,000-page monstrosity of a law is rife with provisions that say the secretary shall, the secretary may, etc. In other words, once they got the bill across the goal line, then they figured they could tinker with it however they wanted to tinker with it. And even outside of that, as we're seeing from Obama's conduct since it's been on the books, they unconstitutionally rewrite it as they go along, as he did yet again today. So that was one part of it. They just wanted to get it on the books. And the other thing was, if he was honest about what he had done, he would not have been reelected. So we heard that if you like your plan, you can keep your plan, even though there's no question that they knew years ago that that was not the case. He said that $2,500 premiums would go down. Premiums are spiking through the roof. He said it wasn't a tax. Remember, he famously went on national television and scolded George Stephanopoulos for having the audacity to suggest that it might be a tax. Right. And then he sent his lawyers into the Supreme Court to argue that it should be upheld because it was a tax. And then, of course, that's exactly the basis on which they upheld it. And we haven't even gotten to the worst of it yet, which is that, the next thing coming around the bend is the strangulating laws in this thing are going to drive doctors out of business. They're already driving doctors out of business. So we're not only going to have a crisis in coverage, we're going to have a crisis in the ability of people to get quality care, or in some places, any care at all.
And what he said today, and you've talked about the Upton bill. You've written about the Upton bill at National Review, talking about Eric Erickson and being aligned with him and his camp. Ed Upton, Republican from Michigan, his bill, which I think is going to be voted on tomorrow in the House, would allow new customers to buy, these meager, terrible substandard policies for another year, in addition to keeping the ones you already have. What Obama's done is saying if you already had one, you could keep it, but it's not mandated even. It's up to the insurance company. So now he's going to make the insurance companies an even bigger boogeyman after he screwed them by having them send out cancellation notices Imagine their computer systems and their office systems and their paperwork. And now he's saying, well, if your insurance company wants to put you back on, they can. I mean, they must be pulling their hair out of their head at these insurance companies.
You're absolutely right about that. In fact, the Wall Street Journal today, I thought it was kind of odd because their bottom line, after saying that the Upton bill was basically pointless, they kind of tepidly go along with it anyway. But they do make the very good argument that, unlike the government, the insurance companies, which are for-profit businesses, actually competently went about the business of trying to stay in business and comply with the law, which means, unlike the Obama administration, they've been preparing since Obamacare became the law to comply. And as a result, these arrangements, they didn't just cancel people's policies because they wanted to be mean and cancel people's policies. They canceled them because the regulations of Obamacare make those policies unlawful.
Right, they had to cancel them.
Right, so at this point, what sense does it make for them to reoffer something that the Obamacare legal landscape makes impractical, implausible, and eventually illegal whenever Obama decides to honor his oath of office and actually take care that the laws be faithfully executed? They're not going to be able to use those plans or sell those plans. So, why are they going to turn around and offer them? And yet, if they don't turn around and offer them, what's going to happen, of course, is that the Democrats are going to say that the problem is the insurance companies,
right,
not Obamacare. And the GOP has teed this up. I mean, you just can't even wrap your brain around how they manage their tactics at times. They've teed this up to basically join with the Democrats in blaming the insurance companies when everybody knows here the problem is Obamacare. And I don't want to go out of my way to hammer the Republicans because I'm sensitive to the idea that we don't want to be having circular firing squads all the time. I get that. But, God, why would we help them do a demagogue routine on the insurance companies to set them up as the culprit when everybody on our side agrees that Obamacare is the problem? I just don't understand how they would set up that way.
Andy, not only that, I just don't even have confidence in these Republicans and the leadership of the party I mean, they should be out there now saying just what you and I are talking about, how this is ridiculous, how this does nothing but set up the insurance companies to be the bad guy. How on earth could you expect insurance companies who just canceled policies to reinstate them? Do you know what that would be like? It's impossible to do. But I've heard silence. And you know what? I don't have confidence that even heading into the 2014 elections, that they are capable of explaining the chaos caused by this bill, by explaining that, okay, even if it looks like it's fixed now, it's not, and here's why. I don't have the confidence that they're going to pass their own one-page bill by that time. I don't think that they've been handed gold and they don't know what to do with it.
Steve, here's the best way, I think, and a very simple, straightforward way to think about this. Don't be a cheap date, okay?
Who told you about me? Who told you about me?
Right. The Democrats are desperate right now. With each day that this becomes more of a catastrophe, they become more desperate. That's the time to drive a hard bargain. It's not a time to get a little chintzy win and move on, which, by the way, isn't a win because it sets up for disaster as this thing plays itself out. They're in a hard place right now, the Democrats. The people don't like this bill, and every day they like it less. Obama, every time he opens his mouth, is hurting his cause because people have figured him out now. They know he's fraudulent. They ought to be driving a hard bargain. Repeal it. And if you can't get repeal, the next thing is defund. And then if you can't get that, it's delay. But get the thing scrapped. And don't give them a lifeline that allows them to basically get through the next election cycle. And then we are in the same catastrophic place again. All
right, we're talking to Andy McCarthy here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let me ask you about the piece you wrote, Obama's Massive Fraud. And you talk about Justice Department guidelines set forth in the U.S. Attorney's Manual. And if Obama were pulling exactly what he pulled, as far as misinformation, disinformation, dishonesty, etc., and he were the CEO of a company, the Justice Department guidelines would recommend prosecution of Obama, correct?
Yeah, look, the guidelines say significant frauds that target entire classes of people, such as, for example, the people who are in the individual market for insurance, or that target the American people more broadly. And they also look for things like number of victims, the dollar amount of the fraud, and how significant is the breach of fiduciary trust by the schemer involved. You can't have a more profound breach of fiduciary trust than an American president who takes an oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed and looks the American people in the eye and knowingly, repeatedly lies to them about a scheme like Obamacare. I mean, it's about as black and white as it gets.
And you know, you talk about scheme. I mean, that's what the attorney's manual says. It says involving, quote, any scheme which in its nature is directed to defrauding a class of persons or the general public with a substantial pattern of conduct. So
yes,
go ahead.
The word scheme is intentional because that's what the fraud statute says. It's a fraudulent scheme.
Yeah.
Or a scheme to defraud. That's exactly what the crime is. So, you know, deceit is the main element of it. And we have deceit here in spades. And as I point out in the piece you were nice enough to mention, the Justice Department prosecutes a lot of fraudulent schemes that are a lot less black and white than this one, a lot more oblique than this one, and certainly that do a lot less damage than this one has done.
It is incredible, Andy. It really is. And, you know, great piece. And as always, keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
Yet this president keeps amending the settled law. He keeps amending it. He keeps changing it every and any time he so desires. Now, how can he do that? He's not a dictator. How is he allowed to do this, ladies and gentlemen? How? And he's not. Constitutionally, he's not. And we need a Republican Party that will come out and will say this. But they don't. They don't talk about it. I don't know. Where are they today? Where? Where's the immediate response to this? It's frustrating. Very frustrating. What can I tell you? But that's